Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chasing a Murder, and today we are on part 111 of Life Beyond the Grave, which is attached to the Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell case. From here on, you're not going to want to miss one upload. Things are getting crazy, and Lori is becoming quite open about how she wants to hurt people, even kill people. We were learning what her brother Adam Cox thought about his sister's transition around this time. We know that Alex Cox is now hopping on board the crazy train, but we're not certain as to why. So Adam, talking to one of the investigators later on, describes what he's seen his sister, what she was going through around this time, and what he's seen personally and thought about his sister during this time.
The things that caught me that were shocking was her telling Charles that Charles is dead, and she knows that there was another guy named Ned that was living in Charles's body, and he was an inch shorter, and that Charles couldn't fool her anymore because he was an inch shorter. It was really alarming to me that she said Charles was dead and that some guy named Ned was living in her body. She talks about people having dark spirits that she can see, and she knows who has dark spirits and when there's dark spirits around, and just a lot of crazy stuff. And so when I told my family, I was like, look, I'm really concerned about Lori. I think, she needs to go to a psychiatrist, or something needs to be had. And my mom and dad had told me, they said, well, she's disconnected from reality because that's the only reality that she feels she can live in, and she's not hurting anybody. And when they told me that, I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll just stay away. I won't try to confront her, because Charles, for about a year, or after they got divorced or were going to get divorced, called me and saying, I'm telling you, your sister has gone off the deep end. And I said, what? So he told me all the things that she had told to him. And he would just call me sobbing, crying, because he didn't have the same wife anymore, didn't have the same Lori. And my whole family cut him off because Lori told them, do not talk to Charles. Right. And I was the only one that took Charles's phone calls, and I live in Kansas. Gotcha. And I felt bad for Charles. And so I said, Charles, I'll do what I can to help, and Lori won't talk to me because she thinks I think she's crazy. So, anyways, through all this, Charles said, well, something has to be done, because she thinks that she talked to Melanie, who's our niece, and she's part of this group now where they go and they're preparing for the end of the world or something. And so she's got her on this, and then she said that her husband was gay, that she went to the temple and prayed about it, that he's gay, and Brandon is not gay. So Melanie left Brandon and just divorced him, and Lori said, oh yeah, I prayed about it, he's gay. So Brandon was upset that Lori's interfering with their lives. So Charles would tell me, Lori is ruining people's lives by just, saying stupid, crazy things. And so he goes, something's got to be done. So he wanted me to fly out there and meet with the stake president, because I know their stake president in our church. And I said, all right, I'll go out there and meet. And he says, I'll just put you on my miles and I'll fly you out there, but don't tell Lori or tell your family that I'm flying you out there, or Lori will run. She won't talk to you.
We're going to pause it right there because he's going into July, and we'll get there shortly. Trust me. So Adam, he knows all this is going on, but he feels helpless. No one is listening to him either. But he'll make a deal with Charles to fly to Arizona and make a better attempt at trying to help Lori before she kills herself or others. So it's around June 19th. Let's not forget 2019. And Lori is actually texting some of her friends, telling them that they want her to meet her at the temple. And they want to meet that morning. And then they'll meet a few days after. They're wanting to work on this zombie that is in Charles' body, Hiplos. This is all that Lori can talk about or think about. According to investigators, they discover that Lori Vallow on 6/21/2019 was searching Social Security disability, and she is seeking a disability application. Charles is still here, so why would she need to search this? We don't know. At least we have an idea. We think we know why, but for certain, we don't know. This is probably a lot of the information that they're going to use that we haven't seen yet. There's more searches and more texts that they'll most likely use in Charles Vallow's trial, as well as Brandon Boudreaux's. The fact that you have this many people surrounding Lori Concern, including the state presidencies, her brother, her parents are even concerned, but they're just kind of brushing it off. They're not getting much help. I mean, things are just not going as people would hope they would. At some point, Lori Vallow is going to actually convince Melanie Boudreaux that, at least that's what we think. We don't know the entire the story on this, because though Melanie Boudreaux has done several interviews, she's been very deceiving and very careful of how she presents the story. But at some point around here, there's going to be talk that Melanie Boudreaux, a few of her children, are becoming dark as well. And is this okay with Melanie Boudreaux? We don't know. During this time, Brandon Boudreaux and Melanie Boudreaux, they are helping each other with the kids. Things have not escalated between them too much around this time. It's devastating for Brandon, but he keeps himself together and he does what is best for the children. Besides that, Lori's too busy plotting against her husband Charles and her own children to have time to worry about other people. What's weird, though we think these are, everything that they're saying is crazy and unrealistic. The weird thing about Chad and Lori is they seem to use these ideas, these belief systems, as reasons for anything that doesn't go right. And they support each other on it. We learned around June 20th of 2019 that Charles rents Lori another house. Do you know what she does with this house? She doesn't put in furniture. She doesn't make it homey. Instead, Lori Vallow fills one of the main rooms, and I'm thinking it's the living room, with mirrors so that she can watch herself dance. A lot of people suspect that she's still making dance videos for her honey, Chad Daybell. And when we get in July and we get into those videos, pay attention to the mirrors. Meanwhile, David and Melanie Gibb, they're kind of getting close. I don't have time to finish the research on the background of Melanie or David, but maybe we can do this in the future. But just know they were both married and now they're not. David Warwick, he's one of Michael James and Nancy James' favorite people. So though David Warwick is speaking on podcasts or at a few of the conferences, they say that David doesn't really relish being in the limelight. He wants to share this gift that the Lord has given to him. And these gifts come to him in dreams and visions. So you'll catch David, especially around this time. Let's see, so June 29th, we're a little bit ahead here. They say that David's going to attend one of the Dreams and Visions workshops, which will be in Rexburg, Idaho at the time. Now let's jump back to Joe, the landlord for Charles and Lori. He says that he's known Charles for like at least 10 years. We learned in another podcast that he said that Charles was a very giving person. Joe had actually even visited with Charles, Lori, and the family when they were in Hawaii. So Joe knows Lori a little bit. Now, once Lori gets back in Arizona, she and Charles are looking into putting JJ back into the summer program at the school he was attending. And Lori emails them and asks them if they will actually enroll JJ back in the private academy with Miss Nicole, which was JJ's previous teacher. This poor kid is going through heck right now. The school was already dealing with the family drama back in February. JJ had become absent in school. This is around the time Lori was gone, just abandoned the family. And the sad part is Charles was having to tell the school, look, his mom's gone. She just disappeared. She's gone crazy. Charles had to tell the school that he had no idea where his mother had gone. Charles actually stressed that one of the reasons that he left with JJ was to protect JJ, and that he had taken JJ to the family in Louisiana in order to keep JJ safe. And now they're back in Gilbert, contacting the school, acting as if things are just fine and dandy. Thankfully, the school did allow JJ to start back to school, so that's good. At least until a few weeks from now. Now, for some of you that might like the timeline, it says here that JJ was actually technically withdrawn from this Gilbert school March 7th. So at first, Charles is still traveling back and forth between Texas and Arizona. He's trying to make this relationship work with his wife, Lori. JJ has started back at the Life Academy. This was actually reported later on by Justin Lum. And in between all this, you have Alex Cox, Zalima, Melanie Gibb, Melanie Boudreau, Lori Vallow, and Chad Daybell all still referring to Charles as Hiplos, a dark entity that has taken over Charles' body. But as I research the story, the things that I see Alex say or his concerns about Lori claiming that Charles is a zombie kind of stands out. So in one of these conversations about Hiplos around June 22nd, 2019, Alex Cox, it says that enters the conversation regarding Hiplos. Hey, it's Alex. And then June 27th of 2019, he actually texts Lori and says, do you think there's a way to change Hiplos to the light? This text actually raised some red flags for me as to how on board Alex Cox was with this group of people. He seemed to actually care about Charles, perhaps, because he's questioning Lori. You know, do you think this is something we can change? I mean, do you really think he needs to be dark? Anyways, while that's going on, Melanie Boudreau, her marriage is falling apart, but she's seen running in a marathon June 22nd of 2019, and she's running alone. Melanie and Brandon Boudreau, as we have learned, have been big on running marathons, especially for good causes like cancer. We will hear in the future how Melanie Boudreau is having a hard time, but as far as I can tell at this time, she doesn't seem to be suffering very bad. June 22nd, 2019, Time to Warrior Up, another podcast episode that Jason Mal is over with the title, What Most Women Really Want. The people hosting or guests on this are referred to the Four Corners and Team Thor, Lori, Melanie, Jason. We won't have time to go into the details I wanted to. Charles Vallow is still not trusting Lori. Though she said, you know, give him the idea that things could get better or we can work things out, he still feels like something's majorly wrong. I mean, how could he not? When you see this woman, she gets this house in Arizona, the first thing she's worried about is put mirrors up. I mean, on every wall in that room. Charles is getting suspicious. He really thinks there's more going on than just religious beliefs. He thinks there's something more going on. There's something missing or someone. And Charles continues to investigate. He continues to dig. And each day he becomes more and more suspicious of what's really going on in Lori's life. We'll hop back and forth a little bit here. By June 29th, Charles Vallow finally finds the seed. He discovers an alternate email and his name that he didn't make up, and a letter that was supposedly written by him. Who was this email letter addressed to? Chad Daybell, of course. It seems we might understand why Lori needed to get a house rental immediately. She was too impatient to wait to be with her lover, Chad Daybell. And this letter only confirms that. Charles reads the letter and is in shock. Although he was suspecting something was up, I guess he wasn't suspecting it to be as bad as that. Lori had broken the biggest trust ever. She had used his name to create an email as an alias to contact Chad Daybell, who was married to Tammy Daybell. She wrote, quote, "We really enjoyed having you stay with us back in November when you came to the Preparing a People conference. I'm willing to pay you well to help me get this book into shape as my ghostwriter. Is there any way you could come here for a couple of days and help me get the book underway? You could stay in our guest room like before, or in a hotel if you prefer. I hate to take you from your family, but I know this book is vital to my speaking success." One of the first reporters to actually discover this was Justin Lum. I wanted to share that. And can you imagine reading that? So here you have Lori saying that she's wanting Chad to come help her write a book. And we know that she's keeping a journal. But are her intentions truly for him to come help write a book? Charles Vallow is devastated, and he will confront his wife, Lori. So there's different dates as to when they said that she sent this to Chad Daybell, so either June 28th or 29th. Vallow said that when he confronted his wife about the email, she blamed him, her brother Adam, and her niece's husband Brandon. Charles wrote, quote, "Just more of her paranoia. Whenever she gets caught doing this kind of stuff, she starts blaming everybody else," end quote. Also in the email, Charles will write how he and Brandon Boudreaux are victims of her craziness. So he's hoping that Adam Cox, Lori's brother, is going to help him help her. He says, quote, "I wish you luck trying to help her. I was the only one brave enough to try to get help in January, and look what happened to me," end quote. So for him trying to wake people up and get help for Lori, he feels like she destroyed him completely and now is threatening to kill him. So I'm going to put this up here for you to read, but he basically, Charles is reaching out to Lori's brother Adam, open this letter and see what she did now. Charles must feel like the whole world is against him. And he's probably just awestruck by the fact of how people are just overlooking every piece of evidence he presents to them. So Charles believes that Lori, when she wrote this, forgot, these things are on the computer at his house in Texas, as well as the computer that she's writing this on in Arizona. And so he's able to pull it up and kind of see what she's doing. But Charles says, you know what? I started doing research once I figured out who this guy was that she's been, hanging out with, Chad Daybell. And Charles kept digging, and he found out who his wife was, Tammy Daybell. He discovers Tammy's email, phone number. Charles threatens to take and send a lot of the stuff that he found to Chad's wife, Tammy. But Charles must feel very relieved just to have somebody believe him and to trust in him of, what he's trying to prove about his wife, Lori. So just remember, it's the end of June that Brandon and Melanie's marriage is falling apart, okay? And from the end of June towards July, up until Charles is shot, they're doing pretty good with, sharing the kids. Lori will not have contact, according to April Raymond, with April from about here on. All right, guys, we're going to end it right here. I want to reach out and say thank you to those of you who have been so kind and so supportive to this channel. You guys have really been a tremendous help, and I love you guys for that. For those of you who have donated on Patreon, you guys have been a dream come true. So I really do appreciate you guys. I want you guys to know that. Maybe one day we'll have time to go and just talk one-on-one and show you guys how much I appreciate your help. It's been a busy year. It's been tough. So finding that extra time, that's going to be the key. Don't forget, share one of our missing girls' faces on your social media today. Maybe somebody knows something. Love you guys, and I'll see you guys soon.